Welcome back to the YouTube channel. The title of this video is How to Become a Book Girly in 2025. Now, I thought I would do this because this is coming from someone who hasn't read a book. Oh, good morning, Angel. Anyway, this is coming from someone who hasn't been able to read a book at all their whole lives until May last year. And since then, I read over 80 books. So if you're not that into reading, but you want to get into it, then keep watching. I'm someone who every year made it my New Year's resolution to just read a book, just read one book. That was my only goal every single year, and I was never able to do it. And just before we carry on, I just want to state all the things that I'm saying are things that are personal to me. So this is what helped me get into reading, and hopefully it will help you as well. The first mistake I made was reading the wrong type of books. And when I say that is every year, every January, New Year's resolution, I would always try and I would always pick a self-help book, basically. I used to have a bunch, like my bookshelf used to be absolutely tiny and the only books on it were all self-help. All things to do with, you know, like how to change your life, how to progress, how to become this, how to do this. Those were not my types of books at all. I could not pay attention. They were not interesting to me. I didn't really care. I didn't care. So the books that I read now are purely fiction, no self-help. And so far, the genres that I have read are romance, thriller, psychological thriller, although I'm not too keen on those. Fantasy, specifically romantasy, dark romance. That's pretty much it. It's romance. It's romance. It's just different little subgenres of romance. That's it. But I've realised that's what I like. That's it. That's the only thing that's going to get me to read. So that is tip number one. If you have found that you're just picking up like self-help books to kind of get into reading, I think it would really help you if you were to pick up like a story. So give that a go, report back, because that is the number one thing that I hear from people. It's all people trying to read like self-help books, self-growth books, which is great. If you love that and you love them, keep going. But again, if you're anything like me, they're just not that interesting. Okay, second tip. Although, to be fair, I didn't do this, but I spoke to one of my friends yesterday and she said this. She said this is what got her into reading. So I'm going to include it. So she said what got her into reading was a film coming out and then she wanted to read the book afterwards. She watched the film, she really liked it, and then she wanted to read the book. The book in question was It Ends With Us. We all know this is a very popular book. I'm pretty sure most people have read it. I'm just holding it up for example. You do not have to read this one. But I think she made such a good point because, like, I feel like if you watch a film, you like the film and you're thinking, I really like this story, I think you have more of a chance of being, like, engrossed in the book than if you were to just read a random book that you don't know anything about. Do you know what I mean? So another example is the after movies. Every girly pop loves the after movies. And you know what as well you will probably find is the books are always better than the film. I watched the film first before this, and then I read the book, and I did really like the film, and then when I read this, I realised how awful the film was compared to this. Okay, not awful, but it wasn't great. So that is tip number 2. Try reading... I've lost all my train of thought. Try reading a book that you've already watched the film of. Okay, now, this is something I used to say all the time, okay? And I still say it now. I cannot, for the life of me, concentrate on a book. I cannot read very well. I get the words all like jumbled up. I create sentences that aren't there. I find I skim, like I don't digest any of the words and I forget everything that I have just read if I don't listen to the audiobook at the same time. So if you've come from TikTok, you'll know because I've spoke about it many times, but I only listen to audiobooks while I'm reading. They call it something on TikTok. I think it's called like immersive reading, but for me, it's just reading. That is just how I read, and I think it's how I'm always going to read. I technically can read like a book on its own. However, I won't read the book. I won't finish the book because I won't be paying attention. I won't understand anything that I've read, and I get so frustrated and cross with myself when I'm trying to read the words that nothing is making sense. So I end up just getting frustrated and putting the book down. So if you have ADHD, dyslexia, any sort of reading difficulties, please, please, please try reading the book with the audiobook. And I honestly think this would help so many people get into reading. Like, I can't talk about it enough. To me, For me anyway, this was the most important thing for me. This is what got me to read. Because most people, when I talk to them about reading, the first thing they always say is, I can't pay attention, I can't focus, I can't keep up, I just lose interest. Please try an audiobook. I rarely ever listen to the audiobook just as it is, because again, I still have difficulty concentrating on that. Like, my mind just wanders off. I need to be fully immersed. Like, you think if you've got the audiobook in your ear, you're reading it, that's 2 senses. That's your sight and your hearing. That's two things to kind of keep you like immersed. I guess that's why they call it immersive reading. Makes sense. Now, don't get me wrong, you will have some books where the narrators are just absolutely horrific, and I do struggle with those, but it is what it is. And also, I know that probably sounds expensive because you've got to get the audiobook and you've got to get the physical book or the Kindle, whatever you read on. So I've already got Spotify, so you get 15 hours of listening hours like in that. I'd say like the average book is anywhere between like 10 to 15 hours. You obviously, if you read like fantasy books, they are a lot bigger, like they're chunkier, they're around 20-25 hours. If you already have Spotify, use those. Audible always have sales going on, like there's always deals on them. So I'm on 2 deals at the minute, and they're both it's 99p every month for 3 months, and you get 1 credit a month for that, so 1 book. But then also Audible have loads of titles included like already in that membership, so once you sign up you basically get a bunch of books for free, and there is lots on there. You just have to do some digging to find them. So another app that I use is BookBeat. They also do a free trial. They have loads of different plans. It's probably the best value actually. The only thing that I'd say about BookBeat is their books are kind of limited, like they don't have all of them on there. But they do free trials. Again, I only sign up with them when there's a deal going on. So I signed up for one at the minute, which is like half price for 3 months. It's like £3 a month for 3 months, and that's 20 hours of listening time. After the free trial, you can always cancel it, and then it's usually like a couple of months later, they'll send you another deal, and then you can sign up on another deal. That's if you want to save money. If you don't really care, then obviously just keep the membership going. That is hands down my biggest tip, is try an Audible book. Like I said, if you have any sort of kind of reading difficulties, like you've struggled paying attention, please try an audiobook, because I could not live without it now. I could not read a book without listening to the audiobook at the same time. I'm very jealous of people who just can read a book and don't need any sort of like assistance or help. But we are who we are. And the last thing that I'm going to do is pick out books that I have read that I would recommend for you to read if you are completely brand new to reading. Nom, 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 nom. Okay, here is my pile. There's not a lot. I didn't want to overwhelm you. Okay, again, the only reason why I'm saying this is because there's a film out. So if you want to watch the film first, then read this. I feel like that is a good place to start. That is what got so many people into reading last year in 2024, is this book and this film. Also, I feel like it's a lot easier for people to read something that everybody else has read. Like, not gonna lie, we are crowd followers, yeah, okay, we're all sheep, let's not lie. So I feel like this is the one where, like, you know, when you're talking about books with people, you can say, yeah, no, I've read that. Maybe watch the film, read the book, and this might be the first book you ever read. Like I said, I wasn't the biggest fan of the film. I think it didn't do the book justice, which is why I'm really glad I read it after. Okay, now let's go with the first book I ever read. Twisted Love. I still love this book. I've read it twice. Fun fact, this book is actually considered a dark romance. So the first book I ever read is actually a dark romance. How crazy is that? I still don't consider it as a dark romance, but basically anything that has dark themes. So I don't know what I can say on here. You get the gist of it. You know what's dark, don't you? But basically in this, he pew-pews someone. So it's considered a dark romance. This is brother's best friend. It follows Alex and Ava. She is sunshine. He is very, very, very grumpy. I'm trying to think why I like this book so much, because obviously this is the book that I first read and it got me into it. So I'm trying to think what I liked about it so much. Okay, obviously it's spicy. It's spicy. This is going to sound like the dumbest thing ever, but I never knew books were like that. I don't know what I thought they were, but I didn't think they had explicit scenes in them. Any books. I know. I don't know why I thought that. But like I said before this, books didn't really cross my mind at all. I think the reason why I like this so much is it's fast paced. Like, it's never really slow. And I do like a grumpy guy. It's not too long. I think it's like 300... It's 343 pages. So standard book, but it's not too big. I think that's another thing to remember. I think for your first book, don't pick up something huge. And also, if you used to be a reader or you've read like a few books but you want to read more, then that's another tip I would say is don't start by picking up giant, heavy books and stick to what you like. Like, don't pick up a fantasy if you've tried reading a fantasy before and it's just not your style. Like, you find it really hard to get into and continue reading. Like, if you like your fluffy, silly little romances, stick to those. Okay, the next one I would say is Flawless, Elsie Silver. This is part of the Chestnut Spring series. This is the first cowboy romance that I ever read. The first one is not as good as the others, but it's still really, really good. But obviously, if you plan to read the rest of the series, then start with the first one. This is what got me obsessed with cowboys, okay? And again, it's not very big. This series, I think this is like... This might even be the second series that I've read. After the Twisted series, I think I read this one. And I loved it so much... Yeah. Coming from a girl who never used to read, never used to be able to read, I now have a tattoo because of a book series. So anything is possible. This is like forbidden romance. You'll find as well, the more books you read, the more tropes you will come across. And when I say tropes, that basically means like, I never know how to describe tropes. They're like things in the book that describe the romance. Things that he does, like things that kind of like lure you into that book. I really don't know how to describe tropes. For example, the tropes of this one, Grumpy Sunshine, Forbidden Romance. This will just make you fall in love with cowboys and that whole life. Like, once you read this, you will you will want to live on a ranch, marry a cowboy, save a horse. You just will. Okay, I have literally just read this book, Magnolia Parks. Now, the only reason I'm saying this one is because it's set in Britain, it's set in London. It is very much Made in Chelsea vibes, which I think it could be quite easy for people to get into, because I feel like when we were younger, we all used to watch Made in Chelsea. You might even watch it now, that's fine. This is unlike anything I have ever read. This is part of a series. This follows Magnolia and BJ. And it is all about toxic love. Like, I can't emphasize that enough. This is not a romance. Like, this is not swoony. Like, you don't love BJ. At some points, you actually just want to... This is like watching a reality TV show. I thought I was going to hate it. Like, when I started reading it, I was thinking, what the fuck is this? But it is seriously addictive. Like, you just become hooked and addicted to the characters. Even though they're so annoying, they're so... grating on the brain, but you just can't stop. You can't stop. They're all London socialites as well, so they're all very posh, they're all very stuck up. It's a love or hate book. However, I find most people love it. Like, they're reading it and they hate everything that's happening, but they can't stay away, they can't put it down. And the series is just getting better. I've got one more book left to read and I don't want it to end. Okay, the last one I will recommend, and this is probably the most plain and simple book I have ever read. The writing has never been so, like, it's very much he said, she said, don't go there, don't do this, stop it. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not complex writing at all. And that is The Pumpkin Spice Cafe. Now, I'm not going to lie. I'd say 90% of people hate this book. So if you do take this as my recommendation and you read it and you hate it, don't blame me, and I'm gonna explain why. So the only reason I'm recommending this, first of all, I actually really liked it. However, like I've said previously, I have a very simple brain. The simpler, the better for me, because I really struggle to understand some things. This is written in third person as well, which I know can kind of peeve some people. I'm not the biggest fan of third person writing, but again, for this one, it seemed okay. The reason I would recommend this for a first time reader, like I said, the writing is just so simple. Like, I've never read a book where the writing is as simple as this one. And nothing is complicated. Nothing is hard to understand. It's a very easy story to follow. It's literally small town romance. A girl moves into the town to take over her aunt's cafe called the Pumpkin Spice Cafe. This is very autumnal, by the way. If you do read this, maybe read it like at the end of summer, start of autumn, because it is very cozy. It's very wholesome. But a lot of the reason a lot of people don't like it is because they say, oh, it's hyped up, it's very boring, it's very simple, which, okay, I completely understand why people don't like this book, especially if they are a very like complex reader, like they read a lot of fantasy. I wouldn't expect them to like this. But like I said, for a first time reader, if you just want something plain, simple, something that's not going to be hard to follow at all, something that's not going to confuse your brain, then I would definitely recommend this. She's also got 2 more books out, which are called The Cinnamon Bun Bookstore and A Christmas Tree Farm. I have also read both of those. These are the types of books where you want to read them when you don't have to pay attention, you know, like it doesn't require too much brain power. So those are my like mega top tips. Another thing that I just want to say as well is you will find that if you do pick up a book, if you do start getting into reading, you will be different to everyone else. Like, there are so many people who binge their books, like want to read it in one sitting or read it in a day. I am not like that. I like to read like chunks at a time. I also read multiple series at the same time. So at the minute I'm in between 3 series, and that is simply because I just get bored and I need like different things in between to kind of mix things up a bit. Otherwise I would just lose interest. Just find what works for you. Everyone is going to be different, and set yourself like little goals. Like, if you just want to read, everyone always says 10 pages a day. That was another thing that was like on my New Year's resolutions, was just read 10 pages a day. But again, it was self-help books, so it got me nowhere. So maybe pick up a book and just start with 10 pages a day or a couple of chapters. Also, finding books with short chapters really helps. But I really hope that helps, and I really hope that this video will kind of help you and kind of give you that little push into reading that you want, because I know so many more people have gotten into reading, including me recently, and it honestly is the best thing ever. Just for like the little escapism, like just going into different worlds, because it really does feel like you're living loads of different lives, and it is just amazing. I would recommend reading to absolutely everyone, like I said, especially stories, and I hope this just encourages you to pick up a book.